collaboration with our island community. Viva UOG Endowment Foundation.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And we begin today's episode, Tuesday, October 4th. Tall Tales with me, your host, Jose Martinez, Daryl Taggerty in the booth, and you, our international radio listening audience, which includes the entire island of Guam. I want to welcome you today to another exciting episode of Tall Tales, where it might seem to be a Ken Leon Guerrero day. I'm going to go over a couple of things that were in yesterday's and the weekend's papers, because I found some things that were connected.
Like Ken Leon Guerrero
Ken Leon Guerrero day. Just a couple of segments. I don't know. It's interesting. We'll get to it when we get to it, but things are starting to become a little less sure, and a lot more questions are opening up. And I think we really need to thank our local mosquito resident, who is Ken Leon Guerrero, who buzzes in people's ears and is getting the attention. You ever read that old? It was a children's book when I was growing up. And now I can't remember the name of it. I think it was called "Why Do Mosquitoes Buzz in Your Ear" or something like that. Very interesting book, but it started out with a little pesky, irritating mosquito, but it actually caused a great stir, but also was beneficial at the same time. But I have to look back into that book. I think my sister might have it. She has all her old children's books from the 70s and 80s. Way back.
Yeah, I was.
I'm sure you were
before.
You were like 30 back then.
JoJo the monkey, you know.
JoJo the monkey. Oh, all your books have probably been banned and canceled now.
Completely. We thought they should have been at the time.
There was a book I remember.
Insulting.
That
Little Black Sambo.
There you go, the one that made the tigers turn to butter. The one that ran around the tree. Well, there's a couple different little Black Sambo.
It was, yeah. There were, yeah.
Well, no, this, yeah.
Aren't we glad we're in the 2020s?
I still think those books are necessary these days, just in the proper context. But
kids did learn how to read.
Let's go to Jimmy Cudney. That music you hear usually is followed by Meet the Press, but I hear that it hasn't been a very successful program, or successful in the sense that I don't watch it anymore, but I actually haven't watched it since, listen to me, I can't even remember names anymore. Tim Russert.
Yeah, way back then.
Way back. He was such a cool guy, real chill. His facial expression was stuck on just this grin that you could never tell how he was responding to his guests. Sometimes he was just a grin.
That was the way journalists behaved back then.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And I don't remember Tim Russert. I remember the ones from before him.
Oh yeah.
So
again, you're the time of Little Black Sambo.
Yes.
Anyways, so what we do is we take all the editorials from the local newspapers, all one of them, because there are two of them, two local prints.
Well, we do also have Pacific Island Times.
Right, but that's not a daily, but you're right. That is something to, and there are some good stuff. There are some good stuff. There's actually some really great stuff that comes out of the Pacific Island Times. But this one's from the PDN today. I find it interesting. I'm not going to state the obvious in this editorial. I'll let you, the listener, decide, and you probably know where I stand on this. Fight. Support National Red Ribbon Week events. Number one, I'm going to say this. This has nothing to do with what I talked about earlier about. You'll know what I'm talking about. I do find it very interesting that the woke movement, or the place where we talked about your I can't talk. I have a brain fog today. Dale, you're going to have to help me out today.
It's not COVID, is it?
It's not COVID, probably, but that's back from back in January.
Yeah, it's long COVID.
What is that terminology when you're anyways, wearing ribbons used to be something that you always showed the movement you're supporting, and you saw all of Hollywood wearing ribbons, and there used to be a ribbon for everything, right?
Yeah, I remember seeing a board that had the colors of all the ribbons, and there were like
virtue
80 of them.
signaling. That's what I'm talking about. Right.
Yes, and after like the first 2 or 3, I got it, but I don't. The rest of them, I don't recognize.
We're never going to run out of colors, though.
Or ribbon.
Or ribbons. Or causes.
Tie a yellow ribbon.
I want to say it started out with the ribbon, at least for me in my time. Started out with the ribbon. You had to wear the ribbon. If you didn't wear the ribbon, then you weren't supporting the cause. And you saw it in Hollywood with every single award show. Everybody was wearing the ribbon du jour, or the ribbon of the time. Now, on Facebook or on all the social media, if you don't put your profile picture to the cause of the time, whether it's for this month, it's put pink all over your profile picture. When Ukraine was first bombed or first attacked by Russia, everyone had the Ukraine flag on their profile picture. And if you didn't, then you didn't care.
No, I care. I just didn't.
But that's the thing. That's the whole thing about virtue signaling. So here we are talking about ribbons. Support National Red Ribbon Week events. It's on a national basis that we in the newsroom receive in our emails the magistrate's complaints detailing the circumstances of the Guam Police Department's most recent arrests. These public documents come with great responsibility for those of us in the media, as we are obligated to report the news. They actually wrote that
They're obligated to report the news.
Don't do the horn. But also maintain a level of respect and privacy for the individuals involved, most especially the innocent victims. But news is news, and we are committed to reporting to you the hard stories that affect our lives and our community at large. Crime reports over time often paint for us a much larger picture of the ongoing crime trends that can help residents be more aware of the precautions they need to take to protect themselves, their families, and their property. Identifying and monitoring the trends, whether in the media or behind the scenes of the Guam Police Department's Central Precinct Command strategic sessions, it's a mouthful, is crucial for law enforcement teams as they plan for the best ways to prevent and deter criminal activity. As long as the arrest record reports with the drug-related crimes and possession continue making their way to our email inboxes, we must recognize that the battle against drugs wages on, even if many will argue that the war has failed. In many respects, it's true. The decades-long war on drugs has never eliminated drugs from the streets. Lives are still being lost, and families are still struggling to reclaim loved ones fighting the throes of addiction. But the painful fight continues every day, and for this, we keep our commitment to cover and promote events like the upcoming Red Ribbon Week held nationally in honor of Agent Enrique Kiki Camarena, whose work and life forced the world to take the dangers of drugs seriously. Drugs are one of our community's pervasive villains, but the fight isn't over until we say it's over. We encourage all businesses, schools, agencies, recovery programs, nonprofits, mental health advocates, professionals, and families, and legislatures in full force to participate in the Red Ribbon Week event scheduled for the last week of this month. Make your red ribbons visible. Take a stand against drugs. You want to know why I said legislatures?
Well, if it's a war, then everyone should be involved.
No, that's not why. But you're right. Everyone should be involved. We have a mixed message here on Guam, and I know I'm going to rattle a lot of people by saying this, but we have this drug, and it is a drug because that's how it's classified. What is it, class 1? Marijuana.
Right, okay.
In the States, all over.
It's a drug.
It's a drug.
Yeah.
But we have a group of legislatures and I guess a mandate from the people because it was made to a referendum, right?
Right.
But
so that they didn't have to make the decision.
Exactly. But then again, it's the whole Pontius Pilate thing. But then again, we have a very low voter turnouts. So was this really a mandate from the island? You know, but then again, I digress and say low voter turnouts mean those people didn't vote. Your voice doesn't matter if you protest something because you decided not to vote. But we have this mixed message here, and again, I'm not making a battle against marijuana use in the sense that
why not?
I've never. Well, it's not. What I'm having a problem with is this aggressive promotion for it right now, and it's in this really weird mixed message we're having, especially when it comes to editorials like this. You know, coming out just a day after there was a vote in the legislature to pass. And again, I know I'm going to rattle people's opinions and people for this, but. You know, we just got finished reading about a man forcing his kid to eat laced candy.
Right.
We're seeing the news about fentanyl being hidden in regular kids' candies.
Right.
And when people think of edibles, understand there's a whole list of other things that could be made, but a number one thing that we see a lot also are candies, things that could be made and then put out there in the public. And when we look at editorials like this where it talks about the war, but then we have a legislature who doesn't really think about the message, you're just thinking about the vote, you know. I'm really surprised that nobody's getting it. Nobody's getting this problem we have on this island, you know, and it starts from one place. And I know again people are going to get mad at me, but it's the aggressive nature of the legislation the past couple of years. It's the bait and switch that happened from medicinal to now recreational. Because remember, they fought tooth and nail to say they was never going to be recreational. That's not what we're here for.
And all they really had to do was just say we're not going to enforce the laws on certain people, but the laws are still on the books, and we will when it becomes something that it becomes a promotion, it becomes an industry, it becomes a tax
I would
issue.
feel better if they opened up testing for that drug so that we can understand what's going on instead of shooting from the hip and using anecdotal evidence right now, because that's what's happening. And I'm not trying to pick on marijuana right now. I'm just doing it because it's in the news and it's at the forefront, and then this editorial comes out. And I know that we have a huge meth problem on the island as well, and we have a huge problem with so many other drugs on the island as well.
Really, and the problem is really, if you're going to have a war on drugs, then have a war on drugs, all drugs, and promote living without drugs, which would include stop glorifying alcohol, stop glorifying marijuana as being normal, stop throwing your hands up and saying we can't do anything more about it. I don't fault the police, but the police are only one side of it, because it's the courts and the behavioral health people and the medical community and the community at large has to really find ways to make the island happy to live with itself without depending on drugs to get through the day.
How much of what is included in this war on drugs has to do with what we read about this whole anxiety pandemic that we talked about yesterday?
Well, you can go back and study that.
Yeah.
But also much of the war on drugs has to do with incentives and sanctions that are laid down by the federal government for funding for certain health grants. You know, you have to do this, or law enforcement grants. So we get grants for 3 dogs, and the dogs are very effective. But we don't put any local money into getting 3 more dogs. We just wait until the feds pay for 3 more dogs and the personnel. That's not a war. That means that we didn't take a good idea and expand it because it's a good idea for us to do.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about.
Yeah, and you're talking about tools and the tools that we can use.
But also funding.
In funding.
Either you're going after it or you're not.
Yeah, and it's a mindset. I mean, we want to look at our government to protect us from a lot of things, but it starts in individual heads. It starts in individual families. It starts in individual communities. And if we keep relying on the government to teach us everything, then we're going to end up with the government we have,
but the
where we
government
rely
has
on
to
everything.
Interdict industrial trade in drugs. And that's their responsibility. They control the ports. They got all these people who are customs and quarantine and law enforcement, and they're not using the tools that we expect them to use.
Right. And again, so that's the the two-pronged thing that made me laugh about this editorial. The double messaging that's going on right now, especially from our elected leadership, and as well the virtue signaling that happens, because all you have to do is wear a red ribbon, and after this week is over, what's next?
It's not about wearing a red ribbon.
Exactly.
It's about what you do.
Exactly. Let's go to a break. I know it's a little bit early. We'll go to a break at the bottom of the hour, and then we'll head to the card.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
Does your physical workplace have an impact on the mental outlook of workers, their overall job satisfaction, and their productivity? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll talk about that and what you might want to do about it. It's The Extra Point here on 93.3.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point by Jerry Roberts at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts on The Ray Gibson Show on 93.3 The Point.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning shows.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Carol Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning Mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all 3.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
And welcome back. It is 4:24 here on Guam. That would be Chamorro Standard Time. You're listening to Tall Tales. My name is Jose Martinez. Daryl, when did Chamorro Standard Time happen? When was it officially labeled that?
I don't remember. I remember sometime when Robert Underwood was the congressman, and they were trying to find a name for the time zone that's not Tokyo time or Sydney time.
Because it's different.
And so they were asking, they were kind of casting about for some name for it, because otherwise it would have been, Naval Base Guam time. And so they
official.
Suggested that they made that suggestion, and it stuck. Mm-hmm. And so it was during Robert.
Do we share that time zone with anybody else?
Northern Marianas.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, that makes sense. It's tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we're on Tokyo time or Sydney time.
Right.
Or not Tokyo time. It's like, Sakhalin time.
And none of the FSM states share.
But they're not in the same time zone.
Not in the same time zone?
Yeah, like Arapic.
Yeah.
I think even
maybe some of the
Yap
islands.
Maybe Yap, center of Yap, but,
So
they don't have a representative in Congress to do the naming.
Yeah. we can't have a Chamarillion time.
Otherwise, it would have been. Otherwise, it would have been naval base Guam
Naval
time.
base Guam time. But it's very interesting. CH said I don't remember saying it until the 90s. I think it was maybe.
That's when it was.
Okay, that's when. Okay, very cool. That's capital C, little h, capital ST. So here on the card today, we have JRM. The card, yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have JRM, Joint Region Marianas versus Purtehe-Latecan. First, before we get to
Yeah, it
that.
could have been JRM time.
JRM time, that's right. First, want to just mention Paul Zerzan and systemic racism. Don't need to tell you about that. Everybody knows about that. We'll probably get back into it on Monday. Then we have 3634. And today we have repeat offenders. And not only are they repeat offenders, they happen on the same page in different publications, but different offenders. Today's offender kind of is close to home because my boy goes to this school, so maybe I ought to contact them. And well, let's go to the one that I just opened it to first. The Guam Visitors Bureau. You have a Taiwan market update meeting on this Thursday, and you still have number 5 new business and is blank. So you have GTO activities as old business, update, consumer sentiment, social media, Super Taste visits Guam. We have market updates from the Taiwan visitor arrivals, airline and market intelligence, Taiwan news, and all of everything that's talked about or determined in this meeting has a chance of being nullified because the announcement is not up to par with 3634.
Well, any decisions they make.
Right.
They can receive those reports.
Oh, sure. Or can they?
Or they have to redo them all.
They'll have to redo them all. And then we have a Career Tech High Academy Charter School, which probably is in the running for the longest title of a school on Guam, but I'll have to go through the career.
Oh, career.
Career Tech. Hey, they're not that woke. It is in Agate. Just saying the location of where the school is in Agate.
You're going to really piss
Don't
people
say
off.
anything, Daryl. Yeah, gosh. The agenda is called order, roll call, minutes, new business, and they list some new business here, and then they have executive session, blank. And not only is it left blank, we all know that if Bob Klitzkie were to read it, he would go blankety blank as well, too, in his description of what the heck is executive session. So those things in Career Tech High Academy Charter School, this has been pointed out a number of times, and maybe I'll do my good citizenship and contact them myself and mention about Public Law 3634.
You could just send them a clip of the show.
You can do that too. I know they do listen because I've heard that sometimes the teachers play parts of this program to their students. And I thank the teachers down there at Career Tech Academy High for doing so. But it's always after they've listened to it after school hours, of course. Excuse me. Okay, so back to the card. We have JRM versus Purtehe-Latecan, and then I have a couple of LGs versus LG. First, it's candidate LG versus Governor LG. Then we have Governor LG versus Governor LG. And then we have back to candidate LG versus Governor LG. Three different things.
Will the real Governor LG please stand up?
Please. And there's a couple of leftovers, and one with an addition from a submission from a listener. This is FBI versus innocent, helpless humans. And then I also have... I just want to read a couple of things that I found very interesting today. So we have Joe Biden versus Joe Biden's childhood, and then a real quick article on something that happened just recently, I think overnight, where North Korea launched a missile. Did you hear that North Korea launched a missile and Japan actually scrambled their citizens.
Well, if someone throws a missile over top of you, you're supposed to scramble citizens. But I don't think we're ready to do that here.
No, but I did find that interesting because I haven't heard them do that yet with Japanese citizens. So I thought that was interesting. We'll just read a real quick blurb on that. So that'd just be North Korea versus Japan / the U.S. Can I just read this real quick because this has to do with the Second Amendment? The Reason came out with a little article reporting on a survey done. I think one of the most comprehensive surveys of American gun owners.
If you're asking, I promise not to turn off your microphone.
It's rhetorical. The largest ever survey of American gun owners finds that defensive use of firearms is common. The result also confirms that, quote, assault weapons and large capacity magazines are widely used for lawful purposes. And for those who don't know what magazines are when it comes to guns, it is not periodicals. They are what everyone
you don't use it.
Clips.
You don't use it to slap the dog with.
Not your dog.
Nope.
Your dog will make a mess. The largest and most comprehensive survey of American gun owners ever conducted suggests that they use firearms in self-defense about 1.7 million times a year. That's huge. It also confirms that AR-15 style rifles and magazines that hold more than 10 rounds, frequent targets of gun control legislation, are in common use for lawful purposes, which the Supreme Court has said is the test for arms covered by the Second Amendment. The online survey, which was conducted by Sentiment with a C in February and March of 2021, was based on a representative sample of about 54,000 adults, 16,000 of whom were gun owners. Georgetown University political economist William English, who commissioned the survey as part of a book project, presents its major findings in a recent paper available in the Social Science Research Network. Just real quick stats here. Overall adult gun ownership rate estimated by the survey, 32% is consistent with recent research by Gallup and the Pew Research Center. So is the finding that the rate varies across racial and ethnic groups. It was about 25% among African Americans. This is gun ownership. 28% among Hispanics, 19% among Asians, 34% among whites, and men accounted for about 58% of gun owners. So I find that breakup along the racial lines and ethnic groups very interesting.
There's a market out there.
There is a market, and there is a...
and there's advertising.
Yeah. Because of the unusually large sample, the survey was able to produce state-specific estimates that are apt to be more reliable than previous estimates. Gun ownership rates ranged from about 16% in Massachusetts and Hawaii to more than 50% in Idaho and West Virginia. The survey results indicate that Americans own some 415 million firearms, including 171 million handguns, 146 million rifles, and 98 million shotguns. About 30% of respondents reported that they had ever owned AR-15s or similar rifles, which are classified as assault weapons under several state laws and a proposed federal ban. Such legislation also commonly imposes a limit on magazine capacity, typically 10 rounds. Okay, there are upper bound estimates. Okay, let's go on to 2/3 of the respondents who reported owning AR-15 style rifles said they used them for recreational target shooting, while half mentioned hunting and a third mentioned competitive shooting. 62% said they used such rifles for home defense, and 35% cited defense outside the home. Yet politicians who want to ban these rifles insist they are good for nothing but mass murder. Okay. Owners of large capacity magazines likewise cited a variety of lawful uses. Recreational target shooting, 64%, home defense, 62%, hunting, 47%, defense outside the home, 42%, and competitive shooting, 27%. Okay, I got to make this clarification. When I first find that defensive use of firearms is common, I thought like in the commission of defending themselves, that they use
No, the
firearms, but they're
purpose-
talking about the purpose.
Purpose why
the
people
intent,
own a gun
they own
is
it.
for
Okay.
defense.
That makes sense now because that's a lot of times they had to use their firearms. Was it 1.7 million? Oh, that they did use. Okay, it was. The beginning of the article here, they said, suggests that the gun owners who were surveyed had used their firearms in self-defense about 1.7 million times a year. Okay, this is where it gets a little bit of opinion in politics here. Politicians who favor a 10-round limit argue that no one except for criminals and police officers really need a larger magazine. Yet respondents describe various situations based on their personal experiences where it would have been useful for defensive purposes to have a firearm with a magazine capacity in excess of 10 rounds. These range from muggings and home invasions by multiple attackers to encounters with wild animals. That's beginning to be a common thing in California and other places too, where the cities and the suburbs are creeping up into
Man versus
wild,
animal.
right?
Yes.
Maybe these gun owners were wrong to think the ability to fire more than 10 rounds without reloading was important in those situations, but judging from the responses that English quotes, they had cogent reasons for believing that. Bans on large capacity magazines routinely exempt current and retired police officers on the theory that they are especially likely to face threats, such as multiple assailants, that may require more than 10 rounds. It strains credulity to suggest that ordinary citizens never face such threats, and this survey provides further reason to doubt that assumption. 31% of the gun owners said that they had used a firearm to defend themselves or their property, often on multiple occasions. As in previous research, the vast majority of such incidents, 82%, did not involve firing a gun, let alone injuring or killing an attacker. In more than 4/5 of the cases, respondents reported that brandishing or mentioning a firearm was enough to eliminate the threat. Okay, now that makes more sense too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yep.
that's the 1.17 million times.
That's an important clarification or revelation, I think, to make is when you think of defense and firearms, it's not always about discharging your firearm. It's about just displaying the
Having
firearm.
it, yes.
Having it there. That reality helps explain the wide divergence in estimates of defensive gun use. The self-reports of gun owners may not be entirely reliable since they could be exaggerated, mistaken, or dishonest, which I always think of surveys, but maybe I'm projecting. I don't know. But I don't lie on surveys. Nobody ever calls me anyways to do them. Why are you looking at me, Daryl?
You're not listed. I
No.
get called all the time.
But limiting the analysis to cases in which an attacker was wounded or killed, or to incidences that were covered by newspapers or reported to the police, is bound to overlook much more common encounters with less dramatic outcomes. About half of the defensive gun use identified by the survey involved more than one assailant. 4/5 occurred inside the gun owner's home or on his property, while 9% happened in a public place and 3% happened at work. The most commonly used firearms are handguns at 66%, followed by shotguns, 21%, and rifles, which is what the AR-15 and all the other, quote, assault rifles fall under, 13%.
Right. So 87% was
Yep.
handguns and shotguns.
Based on the number of incidents that gun owners reported, English estimates that guns are used defensively by firearm owners in approximately 1.6 million incidents per year. That number does not include cases where people defended themselves with guns owned by others, which could help explain why English's figure is lower than a previous estimate by Florida State University criminologists Gary Kleck and Mark Gertz. Based on a 1993 telephone survey with a substantially smaller sample, Kleck and Gertz put the annual number at more than 2 million.
That's why you do surveys with larger numbers.
Yeah. Although less than 1 in 10 of the defensive guns used uses identified by English's survey happened in public areas, most of the respondents, 56% of them, said that they had carried handguns for self-defense. More than a third, 35%, said they did so sometimes, often, or always or almost always. And about the same percentage reported that they wanted to carry handguns in circumstances where local rules prohibited it. At the time of the survey, the ability to legally carry handguns in public varied widely across jurisdictions. Some states had highly restrictive laws that gave local officials wide discretion to reject carry permit applications, a policy that the Supreme Court recently deemed unconstitutional. Even after that ruling, I think he's referring to New York, even after that ruling, some states plan to enforce licensing requirements and or location restrictions that make it difficult for residents to carry handguns for self-defense. Depending on your perspective, the results of this survey demonstrate either the wisdom or the injustice of that strategy. It's true. English's survey also asked about incidents in which respondents believed that the visible presence of a gun had neutralized a potentially violent threat. He says that category would include, for example, a situation in which a combative customer calmed down after noticing the shop owner had a handgun on his or her hip, or in a situation where a trespasser cooperatively left the property when questioned by a landowner who had a rifle slung over his or her shoulder, or a situation in which a friend showed up with a firearm to help defuse a dangerous situation. Nearly a third of gun owners reported such incidents, and some said they had witnessed them more than once. English says the results imply approximately 1.5 million incidents per year, which the presence of a firearm deterred crime. And that estimate, of course, depends on the respondents' subjective impressions, so it is probably less reliable than the estimate of explicit defensive use, which itself is open to the usual questions about the accuracy of respondents' interpretations and recollections. But even taken with the appropriate measure of salt, the results suggest that competing studies may grossly underestimate the defensive value of guns. And that's the other perspective, other than the shooting Yosemite Sam gun owner that a lot of people, the caricature that a lot of people try to, or a lot of gun control people try to make out. You're listening to Call Tales here on KUSG 93.3 FM. We're going to take a real quick break before the top of the hour, before the big halftime show. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
And welcome back to Tall Tales on the Point. One of 5 stations nominated for Pica's Best. One of 3 stations from our family of radio stations in this choice broadcasting. And last year's Pica's Best winner, The Point. Voting starts today, Daryl. Have you voted yet?
Not yet, but I've got, how many devices? 3?
Oh.
3 devices. My wife
That
has
is a strategy.
3.
Didn't think
just,
about that. Well,
political polling, online.
Vote early, vote often.
Yes.
That's what you can do. You know what? It reminds me, it makes me laugh. The Mayor Attelig down there in Petey had wrote he has was it an op-ed, is it today? Or a column today in one of the publications, but I remember him writing about registering to vote, and he actually used the words vote early and vote often. I was trying to think of what he meant by that, but I think he was talking about... Yeah, but he was serious, but he was talking about vote often in the sense that don't miss that one voting time that you're gonna get your registration thrown out. I'm gonna give that one to him like that way.
Oh yeah, but, you vote every every
general election, right? Or is it on the primaries also that you can lose if you don't do a primary?
No. You
just a general.
Only general.
Okay. All right. So now through October 28th, going back to Pika's Best of Guam 2022, we have the Point 93.3 FM, Boss 104, and Star 101, all within the Choice family of broadcasting or family of radio stations. All three of us were nominated for Pika's Best. And then we also have Best Radio Personality. And that's Ray Gibson from The Point. We have Kyle Mandapat from Star 101, and he's a morning show guy. We have Daryl Lazama, who's a morning show guy also, from Boss 104. And Albert Juan, 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 on 104. Oh, you know what Ray pointed out today? Today is Boss Day. Boss 104 Day, 10-4.
It's 10-4.
10-4. So go over there, give them a call, or drop a line, tell them happy 104 Day, and then come back here because we're not done yet. You can vote for a multiple number of people for Best of, because there is a long list of nominations from Best Delivery, Best Food, Best Massage, Best Swimming Pool, Best, there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but the swimming pools are not our sponsors.
Right, that's right. Vote for our sponsors. I was just giving an example, but you're right.
We need that list.
We did not sponsor the Ganya shopping, the Ganya pool. Nope, that's for sure.
And it shows.
It shows. All right. I am going to go over a couple of LG LG versus LG. The first one I want to do is LG versus LG, or actually kind of LG versus Hansen, because I find it interesting that we have, I think, 2 or 3 different accounts of what that meeting was that Ken Leongro got arrested from back in early September. Was it the 16th? Something like that. And
there are a couple of different accounts, but because it became official, it will be sorted out in court.
Right. But this is what happens when somebody gives a quote or a statement to the media, and then they print it. And so this is where our questions come up to being. I'm going to read this one first that came out the day after Ken Leongro was arrested for refusing to leave this meeting. And the headline says, refusing to leave GMH workshop, which is still a general statement, right? But what I found interesting was in this article from the Guam PDN, the public information officer for GMH, Cindy Hansen, said the event at the Hyatt was a training workshop with a firm called HDR Incorporated for assistance in creating a strategic plan for GMH. The workshop included discussions between staff on how to improve day-to-day operations and was about the island's public hospital as a whole, and not specifically a new hospital, Hansen said.
What a hole.
WHOL. But in these other articles that we will go through, not only is Ken LG and Dave Lotz also potentially poking holes in the new hospital, they are also describing a potential money pit. Another hole.
The holes are already there.
The holes are there. So this is interesting. So over the weekend, we had a front page. He made bottom of the fold, but front page article of Ken Leon looking for having to file a FOIA act for his police report, his police arrest report, which I found interesting because I think we had one printed. No, it's just a media release of his report from who is this from? From Paul Tapau, acting PIO. Senatorial candidate petitions court for GMH and GPD documents. A senatorial candidate arrested early this month on suspicion of trying to attend a closed meeting held by Guam Memorial Hospital is petitioning to have the hospital and police department produce documents that have yet to be released to him. Ken Leon Guerrero filed in the Superior Court of Guam 2 petitions for GPD Chief Stephen Ignacio and GMH CEO Lillian Posadas to hand over documents related to his arrest after attempting to obtain them through FOIA requests. According to Post files, Leon Guerrero attended a closed GMH meeting with a consulting firm at the Hyatt Regency Guam for about 1.5 hours before he was asked to leave by the Hyatt staff. So he was there for quite a while then. Yeah. After unsuccessful attempts to remove him, Hyatt security was requested to have Leon Guerrero escorted off the property, but the hotel staff was unsuccessful and immediately called the police. And then we all know what happened. He was booked and released. In Leon Guerrero's petitions filed on Wednesday, he stated his FOIA requests for relevant documents were not produced by GMH and GPD. An email attached to the petition asked Ignacio for copies of all press releases from January 2015 to September 15, 2022, the day after his arrest. Also in an email attached to his petition, Leon Guerrero asked Posadas for copies of all documented communications between the hospital, the Office of the Governor, GITA, JRM, Joint Region Marianas, and consulting firms from this year. Leon Guerrero made the request 4 days before filing the petition, which stated Ignacio and Posadas were not complying with the law. Petitioner has exhausted all administrative remedies, and there is no plain, speedy, or adequate remedy other than this application, Leon Guerrero wrote before asking the court to issue an order to show cause. Following his arrest, GMH spokesperson Cindy Hansen said the meeting was a workshop with an off-island consulting company, HDR, which would have later become a public document. So now she's a little bit more reserved in her description of this meeting.
She's still a public employee commenting about a public meeting.
Mm-hmm. So again, it's documented that she's not saying what she said earlier in another article, which I found interesting. Governor Lou Leon Guerrero told the Guam Daily Post the senatorial candidate's actions were, she made a slight on him. I'm not going to repeat that. It wasn't even a meeting. It was more of a presentation and a discussion with a consultant that the hospital had hired to help them along with their strategic plan and can enforce it, the governor said. He was not invited, and I felt that wasn't very courteous at all. And she talked again about all the fighting not to leave and making allegations of secret meetings. Absolutely not true. Leon Guerrero said after he was arrested, he was tipped off about the meeting and should have been notified as a GMH stakeholder. That is the question. What kind of meeting was this? Is this something that should have been on the agenda? And I find it interesting that it was not even a meeting, according to the governor. It was just a presentation with a consultant.
But others say that that it was to elicit feedback.
Oh, yep. More than a presentation. I just want to remind people, in case they don't recall, especially the legislators who decided not to vote in favor of the people, but rather to represent Adelup in not voting to to override the veto of Bill 11, that under this health emergency that I'm assuming that our governor's still under, or still has us under, she is sole authority, and thus she takes responsible for what happened on that night as well. That's what I'm assuming as someone who has sole authority. Okay, we have a couple of people here on the phone. It's going to be really quick. Who came in first? This is another Joe. Another Joe, what say you? Real quick.
All right, real quick. So Darryl was saying this is going to be a public hospital, but they were talking about hundreds of millions of dollars and bonds and all these things that the public should be transparent. So maybe they should make a reality show or something. No, seriously, they should have some sort of documentary or investigative journalist look into it. Maybe.
Yeah, we just have to find those. Maybe that'll be the reality show. Who wants to be an investigative journalist? And then we'll put them on an isolated island, maybe, and they can fight. And they can fight for their credentials. They can fight for courage, and then we'll send them up to Adelup for their final mission. What do you think, Joe? Yeah. Okay. Thanks for calling in, Joe. That's not a bad idea. Let's have a reality show to find ourselves our first investigative journalist on Guam, or a more current, recent one here.
Maybe it could be on PBS.
Maybe. But in the meantime, you guys have Tall Tales, the most reality show you have on.
This is real.
This is real.
May be laughing about a lot of stuff going on, but
we have to laugh, because if we get angry about it, then I'm just going to stutter some more.
No, we cannot use that language on the air. FCC says so. I have to shut your microphone off.
But, I think there's more to this story, because it's not so cut and dry. And people are wondering, why, Jose, do you keep bringing this up? And that Ken is a candidate, and you're just giving him airplay. And I'm like, he might be a candidate, but he's been doing this before he became a candidate, too.
And he's doing something. I'm
because none of the other candidates are doing anything.
29 other senatorial candidates are,
it's quiet,
conspicuous in their absence.
Yeah. You're listening to Tall Tales.
And the incumbents.
Here on KUSG 93.3 FM. We're going to go to a break before the top of the hour. Oh, yeah, we're going to go to the big halftime show, so don't go away. More to come after this.
After what?
The big halftime show.
We're not there yet.
Yes, we are. Oh, no. We're almost there.
We're almost there.
Go. Play it. Oh, yeah. Read it down a little bit. During the halftime show, we do have an addition to the Rogues Gallery. And if you guys see it, those of you on Facebook or YouTube, try to name that rogue, and then we'll identify him when we return. So don't go away. Addition to the Rogues Gallery here on Tall Tales. Big halftime show coming up.
And in the second half of the show, we'll have Ken LG himself.
Oh,
he called in, but I told him it's like 3 minutes left.
Okay, very good.
Okay, so coming up next hour.
Looking forward to it. All right, don't go away.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
New saber rattling from North Korea. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Air raid sirens wailing over parts of northern Japan early Tuesday morning as a North Korean missile flew overhead. People in 2 provinces were urged to take shelter. Some train service was halted for a time. The missile ultimately splashed into the Pacific Ocean east of Japan after a flight of nearly 2,800 miles. Japan's defense ministry says they don't rule out any response, including counterattacks. South Korea is boosting its air defenses. President Biden Monday visiting Puerto Rico, meeting with Governor Pierluisi about recovery from Hurricane Fiona.
I'm confident we're going to be able to do all you want, Governor. and I'm committed to this island.
Tomorrow, the president will travel to some of the areas of Florida devastated last week by Hurricane Ian. Some of the barrier islands reported to be uninhabitable, accessible only by boat or helicopter. Damage will certainly total in the billions, but Governor Ron DeSantis telling Fox's Hannity.
There's a spirit out there, particularly the people of Southwest Florida. They're ready to bounce back. They need some help. We're down there doing it, but they have a lot of grit and determination.
The White House trying to clarify comments from Vice President Harris over the weekend that Florida hurricane relief would be based on equity. Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre saying they are committed to quickly getting resources to all communities. Opening statements held Monday in the trial of Stuart Rhodes and other members of the Oath Keepers group who are charged with seditious conspiracy in the attack on the U.S. Capitol. Prosecutors claiming the group's founder and 4 associates planned for an armed rebellion to try and stop the transfer of presidential power. The charges against Rhodes and the others are the most serious so far from the January 6th, what happened January 6th at the U.S. Capitol. America is listening to Fox News.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
A new rule is expected to go into effect today that means longer rest periods for flight attendants, but potentially disruption to air travel.
The Federal Aviation Administration is reportedly going to require airline flight attendants to get at least 10 hours of rest between shifts. Congress wanted to enact that back in 2018, but the Association of Flight Attendants says the Trump administration tried to prevent that rule from taking effect. The trade group Airlines for America estimates the rule is going to cost its members, like American Airlines and Delta, about $786 million over the next 10 years. But the FAA has been citing reports that say fatigue is associated with poor performance of safety and security-related tasks. Chris DeMeo, Fox News.
The Supreme Court is taking up an Alabama redistricting case that could have far-reaching effects on minority voting power across the country. The justice is hearing arguments today over the Federal Voting Rights Act and lawsuits seeking to force Alabama to create a second black-majority congressional district. About 27% of Alabamans are black, but they form a majority in just one of the state's 7 congressional districts. The High Court Monday heard arguments over the Clean Water Act and how far-ranging the government's authority over bodies of water should be. Police fear there could be a serial killer stalking the streets of Stockton, California.
5 men have been shot dead since July, all late at night or early in the morning, while walking alone in largely unlit areas of the city. The killings began on July 8th when a 25-year-old man was shot. Then on August 11th, another killing. And again on August 30th and September 21st, with the most recent shooting happening on September 27. Police have ruled out gang violence, robbery, and hate crimes, even though 4 of the victims are Hispanic. So the motivation of the shooter or shooters is unknown.
Fox's Jonathan Hunt, and I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations. We're already Pica's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the point on Alexa. Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
Half a day. This is Clara Manglania from Security Title. A power of attorney can be a useful tool in a real estate transaction, but if abused, it can result in devastating loss. Choosing your representative should be done with the utmost care and should be very specific about the powers being granted. To mitigate loss, the team at Security Title confirms with the owner prior to using a power of attorney to sell the property. Each transaction is unique. Let the professionals at Security Title use our experience to facilitate a secure closing. We are here to help.
We are back, finally watching the rest of the tail end here of our Tailgater Rogues Gallery. And with a new addition, I don't know if anybody knows and recognizes that rogue listener, James Bondo. I think I'm pronounced that last name correctly. Our latest addition to the Rogues Gallery. Congratulations on your new duds, your new shirt. Wear it proudly. And wear it everywhere, even the church if you must. Let everyone know that you are a tailgater. You are listening here to Tall Tales. My name is Jose Martinez. That was the big halftime show featuring the Rogues Gallery of those who have purchased a I'm a Tailgater t-shirt, took a snapshot of themselves, of their families, of their friends, and sent it to the Point's WhatsApp number at 671-797-8255. And you too can get one also. T-shirt, just go to thepoint.gu and click on the link of the t-shirt, and they'll send you to another local link, and you can order your shirt from there. And there are also, I'll say there might be links on Facebook, and we haven't got around to put it on YouTube yet, but we'll put one there soon. I'll provide one on the Facebook comments here in a bit. But right now, let me get to Ken. He's on in the green right now. Talk a little bit about your efforts on the arrest, the meeting, and your FOIA request. I'm interested in why you asked for a FOIA request all the way from 2014?
2015, January 2015. Okay. What I wanted to do is look at how many press releases were issued by the police department after people were arrested. Now, when we look at the fact that there's somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 arrests a year, would you be surprised to say that over the past 8 years or 7 years and 10 months that only 189 press releases have been released?
189.
2,000 to 3,000 people a year arrested. Only 189 press releases have been issued. And I discovered that I was not arrested on the 14th of September. I was arrested in August 14, according to the press release from the police department.
Huh. Okay.
So that was quite a surprise to discover I was arrested a month before the event took place.
Right. It is interesting.
You must have been out on good behavior.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right here.
Yeah, really. I'm one of those. Yeah, I'm one of those.
Revolving door.
Repeaters.
Yeah.
Maybe Sergeant Tapau, Maybe he probably divined it on August 14th. And
He saw you coming.
He saw you coming. Yeah, you're right. I'm reading this right now. It says on Wednesday, August 14th, 2022. And then it goes on to describe what happened on not August 14th, 2022.
Yeah.
You're a
real
serial
interesting.
civic activist.
Yeah, serial. Yeah, there we go. Serial activism. You know, and now we have the discrepancy. We have the GMH press, whatever you call her, flack, saying it was a training session with HDR. We have the governor saying it was a strategic planning meeting. And we have the legal counsel in his statement to the police saying it was a GMH construction planning meeting.
Well, actually, the governor said it was not a meeting, just a presentation, according to, I believe it was the Post, the Guam Daily Post. Her quote was, it wasn't even a meeting. It was more of a presentation and a discussion with a consultant that the hospital was hired to help them. So, but this consultant you found out, because I think you're the one that told us, or maybe it was Ron McNitch, told us that this is a construction company?
Yes, this HDR, according to the consultant, who was very, very proud, was telling me that we are the largest builders of healthcare facilities in the United States. And while we were talking, I went to her website and I pulled up HDR, and then I look at projects, and there's like page after page after page of pictures of hospitals, healthcare facilities, physical rehabilitation facilities. So nowhere in there was anything about HR, which is what Hansen claims. It was HR training or something like that.
She was quoted as saying that as well. You're right.
Yeah, so the last thing that we saw on their website, nothing on their website had anything to do with HR. It all had to do design, build, and operate of healthcare facilities. And that came straight from the person who was doing the presentation. So
how long did the courts have? I'm just trying to get to this real quickly because I want to get into some of the other stuff that's come by in the past couple of days, including somewhat of a soft revelation. I think it's just a campaign talking point coming out from the governor's meeting in D.C. But how long does the courts have before they fulfill, or do they look at your petition?
Well, the courts looked at it right away, because what was supposed to happen is the agency has 4 working days to respond. And when they did not respond after, I think I waited 10 days, then I went to the court, and the court issued a writ of mandamus, which directed them to respond or report to the court why they could not respond. And as soon as those writs were delivered, I had a phone call from the legal counsel at Guam Memorial the very next morning. Well, actually, he sent me an email the next morning. And the Guam police officer, I dropped off my petition, I think around 11 o'clock, my order from the court around 11 o'clock. 4 o'clock, I got a call from the office of the chief of police letting me know that they've received the petitions and they're working to get the information I requested, and they will let me know when they have it together. But, you know, it shouldn't take a citizen $400 to $500 to get a director of an agency to do the job they are required to do by law and follow the laws that they all swore to uphold when they were put in office. And that's the situation I find myself in here, because now I'm getting ready to do a second round of FOIAs because of the information that I've received is not complete. And this is what we call weasel room, because I did not identify a specific document by name, even though it's implied in the request, any and all documents pertaining to.
Right.
So when I called Gita and requested some of these documents that were not released to me, they said that their legal counsel says that we cannot release those documents to you. So now I've got to draft up another petition, go to court, another for $500 to get these these documents that are public domain documents. It is not a criminal investigation. It's not a personnel investigation. It's not a trial in progress. Those are the limitations on what documents can be released under a FOIA.
Mm-hmm.
These are documents that are specified to be released on certain days in a contract that the taxpayers paid $1.9 million for. If the government does not have those documents, then why the hell did they give them $1.9 million? Why do you give them the money up front? That's not a good way to deal with consultants.
Right.
Because now we have a situation here where in the contract, or what we call Task Order 8, there's a list of documents and the delivery dates of these documents. And none of those documents have been released to me, and legal counsel is saying they can't be released. So now I got to go back and talk to the judge and have the judge tell them.
Now, when you submit the petition to the court, and of course you have to pay the fee, and the court, I guess, I don't know the terminology, rules in your favor. Are those fees now compensated to you by somebody in the department that you petitioned for those documents?
Not yet. I'm going to have to go back to the court for that.
Yeah, because my understanding is you went, like, for instance, Joe Schmo is at the desk, and you asked for FOIA request some documents via Joe Schmo, and if Joe Schmo doesn't produce them, then he's responsible for those court fees. Yes, or is he going to get a fine?
Well, he pays a fine. The agency pays the fees.
Well, we pay the fees.
In this case, yeah, I feel bad about that. But we're talking about the documentation that's coming out right now shows a potential $2 to $4 billion building, and that building isn't going to make healthcare any better. It's the people that are in the building that make it healthcare better. So we have a situation here where the Army Corps has identified a series of projects that, if addressed at the current hospital, will extend the useful life of the building and safe operating and clean operating conditions for 5 years or more. For $21 million.
Ken, how many times have you, pertaining to the hospital, or pertaining to this subject matter, how many times have you done a FOIA request for documents and were refused?
On this subject, only once, because I've probably done 15 or 20 FOIAs to Guam Memorial over the years, and they were always complied with promptly and correctly. It's just that when I started digging into this, that I started running into roadblocks from every direction, denials. I mean, when they're saying that these documents don't exist, and I'm looking at these documents right here, it's just, what are we going to do? It says right here, back in March, I forget the exact date, but the date they signed the contract, it says, upon receipt of this contract, this is the schedule you will adhere to. And there's a list of deliverables by date and specifies that the materials delivered will be in hard copy and digital format. So there's there's a list of 8 or 10 things that should be deliverable in paper and digital format going back to June 2021.
Are we to think that these agencies are not working on any deadlines whatsoever, so each report and document that's supposed to be put out for the public is just on a whim whenever they want to give it out? Could we FOIA their schedule? I'm sure there's grants involved also. I'm sure there's other timelines involved, and I don't feel like there's a timeline on this.
Well, there is a timeline because, as Congressman St. Nicholas pointed out, these CARES Act and ARP funds have deadlines for commitment, which is 2 years. So we have 2 years left, not even 2 years anymore. We have maybe 18 or 20 months left because I think it was in June, he said it was 2 years, and they have to be fully expended in 4 years. That's why the governor made a statement after the congressman's address that the congressman doesn't know what he's talking about. We will have a hospital built inside of 4 years. Well, that's kind of hard to do when you haven't got a site, you haven't done the site studies, which take 1 to 3 years.
Right.
You haven't got an A&E, architectural engineering drawings, which are based on completed site studies, and then you haven't got costing, because, you can't really do a cost until you see what you're trying to cost. And that's why, when I looked at 10 hospitals that had been built in the last couple of years in the U.S., 150 bed range, the price is between $275 and $375 million. And, we're talking about places like Massachusetts, Washington, D.C., where the cost of construction are very high because they're union shops. And, land in Massachusetts is just as expensive as land on Guam, same thing in Washington, D.C. So when we're looking at the comparables of buildings built, 150 to 200 bed hospitals are running between 275 and 375. How did we get to 871 on Guam? And that's not including the land.
And that's the big question here. I mean, people may look at you being Ken LG. You've been out there in the public. You've done these kind of FOIAs. You've done these kind of asking the hard questions. And hopefully people are not kind of like, what's the story, the boy who cried wolf type thing. But this was a campaign issue for the governor to completely talk about during, I think, a debate, and during, like you said, at the end of the address of the delegate of St. Nicholas. I also am very concerned about the deadline of the monies that have to be spent, why we don't have any transparency or any kind of anything to look at, not even a really nice graphic to post.
And I'd like to remind you that the procurement of these services was made under sole source, under an emergency declaration.
So this is very. I really hope that our public out there, whoever your candidate is, the lack of transparency, whatever side it is, the lack of transparency is not acceptable. And I just find it amazing that we really don't have hard-hitting reporters and journalists like knocking on the door every single day looking for documentation, asking more questions.
And we don't even have a decent, royal of issues in a month before the election.
Exactly. So thank you. I just want to follow. I just want to end your call here with a pronouncement from the Governor LG. We are transparent and accountable to the people. We are transparent with reports, meetings, and minutes. As far as I'm concerned, we are following everything that we are required to do. And that is a quote from the governor.
So if you don't die, you'll live.
That too. So, Ken, thank you. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the Cosmo Hospital and what Dave Lott's put out there. Also, he's on the same page as you. Not as active, I guess, on paper or, that we know of. But
he's not going through fingerprinting and the courts.
And he by no means isn't quote unfriendly with the governor, and I think he has some really great questions that he asked. So thank you again for calling.
There are a lot of great questions that need to be asked. I hope the media picks up your cues and does something.
So do I. And I'm not the only one asking these questions. You've heard it on Ray's show. Bob's asked the same questions, and I hope all the other stations and talk radio heads on Guam are asking the same things.
I'd like to remind everyone that we elected people 2 years ago to ask these questions as well, because they have official positions and they have official responsibilities, and they represent us, and it's
been crickets.
The silence is deafening.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thank you for the call, Ken, and looking forward to the next time. And hopefully you get these documents, the most recent ones you asked for.
And tell us all about it.
Me too.
Yeah. All right, have a great day. All right,
thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. All righty. Yeah, it's again, there's lots that can be unwrapped here, but the main gist for me and hopefully for everybody else is, what the heck is going on? Why isn't anybody asking questions? This is not a little thing. This is not quit picking on the governor type thing. This is billions
of dollars. To pick on the governor if it's election time.
Yeah.
I mean, not that you
even
have
if
to.
it wasn't election time.
No, that's right. That's right. She's got the job, and so she's got to be good for the questions.
Well, what I wanted to, and where did I put that paper at? I wanted to read this part real quick that just came out today in the Pacific Daily News. White House plans to help Guam. And this is a LG versus LG. Because now it seems like there's another plan. But we don't really know what it is.
Well,
but we're just supposed to be told to look for it because me.
Well, if you need to have $800 million or plus, you're going to have to dip into more than one pot.
Or give us a little bit more information than somebody said, we're going to do something, but we just can't talk about it. But don't worry, we're going to do it, but just not talk about it here. Was she supposed to give out this? Let me read the article real quick, or just some important parts here. Governor Lilian Guerrero said she plans to ask the Biden administration to help Guam pay for a new hospital, among other needs, after one of the president's advisors told her the administration will be pumping resources to the island. Leon Guerrero, who returned this week from a Pacific Island summit in Washington, D.C., said she spoke with Kurt Campbell, who is Deputy Assistant to the President and Coordinator for Indo-Pacific Affairs on the National Security Council. He went out of his way to talk to me and let me know that's what they are planning, the governor said Monday, adding she expects there will be a follow-up discussion with Campbell. When he said to me, we will be giving more resources to Guam, it wasn't in an environment where we could talk in detail about it, she said. He just said, we are going to be pumping resources to Guam. Well, let's hope that this Campbell realizes that Guam is a territory of the U.S., and he wasn't just saying something to the latest Pacific country that was attending this meeting. The governor said she does not know why the administration wants to give more support to Guam, but said the administration recognizes Guam as a key player in the region, as well as the good relationship the governor has with Pacific Island nations. And it goes on to more speculation, which tells me, okay, you have this meeting right here that just occurred last week. What does it have to do with the new hospital? And if there's plans for more money, then that means that we don't have enough right now? Or do the recent plans include this new speculative plans for more money? How does it tie in?
No, I thought that this new Pacific initiative that the governor is supporting, and she is part of the group that is pressing the U.S. government for more spending on the Pacific Islands, and the hospital could be a center of care for Micronesia, and there's all kinds of ways to skin that cat.
Mm-hmm. It's just
so it's a good time to ask for money
she didn't ask for money.
$1.5 to $2 billion.
She didn't ask for anything. She was there for something else, and the guy came up and said to her,
"It was the Pacific initiative."
Deputy Assistant to the President and Coordinator for the Indo-Pacific Affairs National Security Council went out of his way to talk to me and to let me know that they are planning what they are planning.
Right.
Okay.
Regional infrastructure.
Yeah. So I'm sure that whatever they're planning is not going to come next month, or even in 2 months, maybe.
I think this is fast tracking because it's all of the.
Well, let's fast track some transparency then too on what's already occurred before all this other new money is coming.
Totally agree. Do you want to take a break before we go?
Yeah,
on
let's
to
take
the
a break.
next
We're
call?
going to the seventh inning stretch, and then we have Frenchie in the green room, and then repeat on Money from the White House. Don't go away. We'll be right back with more Tall Tales.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
Does your physical workplace have an impact on the mental outlook of workers, their overall job satisfaction, and their productivity? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll talk about that and what you might want to do about it. It's The Extra Point here on 93.3.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point by Jerry Roberts at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts on The Ray Gibson Show on 93.3 The Point.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarty Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
It's the bottom of the seventh. We're going to say the bottom. We have 2 more innings left before the end of this program. I just received an email just got put out, a statement saying that the, let me see here, Chief Justice Francis Tadinko Gatewood of the District Court of Guam approving the confirmation of the Fifth Amended Joint Plan of Reorganization today. Victim survivors of clergy sexual abuse in Guam will now finally receive an important measure of compensation and restitution for the agony they've endured. And so it goes on. I guess there was a settlement that was agreed upon. There's more to it, of course, and I'll read that later on tonight and probably talk about it tomorrow. It'll certainly be the talk of talk radio on Guam tomorrow as well. Right now in the green room, we have Frenchie on Ken LG and McNitch. Good afternoon, Frenchie. What say you?
Good afternoon, Jose. How are you?
Very good. Hanging in with my voice.
Well, you're doing much better because you cannot stop talking.
Right. I'm just babbling. It's your turn.
You got the Klitzkie disease.
Oh, boy.
Okay. So, well, I wanted to talk on the GMH HDR article, which I read on Sunday morning. I almost choke on my coffee. Because, you know, this article stinks to the high heaven. We now have at least 5 different versions of what happened at that meeting.
Right.
None of them.
Take your pick.
Take your pick. None of them make sense. Now, the Post is doing a great hack job on Ken as a candidate. You know, the man that was arrested for blah blah blah, and you know, it's typical Red Queen campaigning against their opponent. You do a campaign of rumors and innuendos and things. You know, Ken is innocent until proven guilty if he ever goes to court. So, and one thing, the Post was able to get a hold of the governor while she was dealing with the Biden administration and this Kurt Campbell, which, by the way, is one of the worst neocons in D.C. And she was swimming in the swamp that week, and she had the time to make all those statements explaining how you know, how terrible Ken was of interrupting that meeting. He didn't interrupt. The meeting had not even started when he got arrested. So what is very interesting, never mentioned that he actually needed medical attention at GMH when he was arrested, and they tried to put him in the car. And one thing they also, which shows you the Post has become a hack job, is that they didn't even call Ken to get his version of the events.
Nope.
Nothing.
Nope.
So it's they do press release from, and as far as the police department, don't forget that Paul Tapau had resigned from his position because he was sick and tired of all the BS he had to deal with, which is more political than anything, and he's still a cop, and he didn't want to deal with it. And then there was a couple of people that tried to fill his shoes, and then right now they basically ask him to get back his old job or else. And so the poor guy is caught between a rock and a hard place. And, he's actually not a bad guy at all. I know him personally. And I doubt that, he's in a very easy position there because what they asked him to do was a political job. And this is not what he does. He's a cop. So it's, all those things sink to high heaven. And, that Kurt Campbell that was saying, the guy, one interesting thing about him is that he actually did part of his studies in the USSR at the time where it was our enemy. And he also is a fellow of the John McCain, he's a Kissinger fellow of the John McCain on foreign policy. It's just amazing. If there is a swamp creature, Kurt Campbell is there. He's a Democrat from Fresno, California. I think somehow some of his family is part Armenian, where there are a lot of Armenians in Fresno, California. And he was one of the first persons that was assigned to help the White House when there was a changeover. And I think he has his own business, if I'm not forgotten. I would have to research it, but I think he has his own business, which is based on East Asia and Pacific affairs. So he's kind of the specialist for the old Obama administration hacks. So now to go to McNitch. And this also stinks to high heaven. I couldn't call yesterday because I'm doing a lot of things with Europe right now that I didn't wish I had to do, but I have to. But, Ken is, McNitch is now the target of an investigation of UOG, which is following a complaint by the writing candidate. I'm not going to mention his name because I think this is really another hack job, who, by the way, has failed to explain how he's already spent $21,000 in his campaign, and despite both his opponent asking him to explain how he did it. So there are a lot of things in that candidate's last-minute candidate that I really don't like. It is way of approaching the campaign looks like it comes from the playbook of the Red Queen. It's really, really bad. And there are more questions about this candidacy and the way he's been trying to silence McNitch, which to me are not what you do if you want to run for Attorney General. Because that's the way you're going to run your department, we're SOL. So, this is what I wanted to say yesterday. I couldn't. And that article from the Post shows how far the Post, how low the Post has gone down lately. There used to be a fairly decent newspaper. I mean, you never agree with everything a newspaper says and do, but they have thrown out every appearance of neutrality, and they just basically do press release from Adelup, and it's just a shame. And at least they could have tried to talk to Ken, which I know they didn't. So and they do semi-truthful statement, which is.
Hello? What was I called? Dropped. Well, Frenchie, if you want to continue your call, your rant, you're free to call back in. But who we have in the green room might want to continue it for you. Repeat. You are on Tall Tales. You have a lot there on your plate now. What are you going to unwrap first?
Well, I wanted to call about the whole USAID, Department of State, giving Guam money.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how it works. So whoever was at that meeting and said whatever they said to the governor, I suspect, because I worked for a year with USAID and Department of State, helping them with some of their missions, and I know what they do and what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. And they can't give U.S. territories money. It's USAID, U.S. Agency for International Development. So they cannot spend any money domestically. Likewise with Department of State.
Well, that's why I questioned. Does he know that Guam is a territory, or did he think this is one of the Pacific countries?
That's what I was getting to. A lot of these undersecretaries or deputies or whatever, they're political appointees, and they are clueless. They're just somebody's, I guess, racquetball teammate or whatever, or college lacrosse teammate, and then they become members of the executive, the senior executive core.
Oh, Pete,
right?
Can I ask you a question?
And I've worked with these people, and they are clueless.
Oh, Pete, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Is it possible, within the realm of possibility, that what he was referring to is money that will go to for health, to cover the health care costs of FSM migrants on Guam coming out of an international pot, or for them to go find funds elsewhere in the U.S. government that can be spent in the territory of Guam, but specifically relating to... Yeah, because that's what that whole Pacific Initiative was about, right? Was about boosting the infrastructure on the U.S. affiliated islands.
But that's not what's said.
That's possible if we get indirectly benefited from it, but the way I heard it was that we're gonna get a piece of the pie, and that's legally impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So it
sounds like
tie-in.
Yeah, it sounds like direct money and direct funding.
Yeah, and so that would not be possible even if they wanted to. That would definitely, there would be so many different people putting the brakes on that.
That's right, as a direct. But if he's a member of a committee of state, defense, interior, National Security Council, and they're talking about how much do we devote to improving our relations with all the peoples of the Pacific, which was the Pacific Initiative conference that was held last week, then that is where it comes in.
Someone that didn't know. Isn't fully aware of what the relationships are.
Right.
Maybe doesn't
like
even
Kirk
know
Campbell.
what.
Kirk Campbell was, I think Frenchie alluded to this during his call. Kirk Campbell was the Obama, I recall his name as being an Obama point man for Asian affairs.
That I don't know anything about the guy, but if that was the statement that he made, then that would be not a very informed statement. Just I'll categorize it like that.
Well, this is what I'm looking at, Daryl, and this is why I appreciate what Pete's saying. What Pete's talking about is in general what can and cannot be said. What you were opining, though, Daryl, is you're just speculating on what it could be, and that's the danger of this article right here, and the governor making quotes that aren't really quotes of anything. And it's almost like saying something's going to happen, something big is going to happen, but I can't talk about it, but it's big because it's coming from this person and names this person. And then she further muddies the water by saying she does not know why the administration wants to give more support to Guam, but said the administration recognizes Guam as a key player in the region, as well as the good relationship the governor has with Pacific Island nations. Is that a requirement for getting this money? Or again,
we've been
it's
trying to get money from the Compact Impact.
but this
for
is fuzzy.
30
this is,
years, and if
correct
it
me if I'm
can
wrong, Pete.
change
This
the
is fuzzy.
calculus of that.
This is
then that is moving forward.
Okay, one person at a time, please.
Well,
this is fuzzy stuff that doesn't need to be said at this time. But she's further muddying up the water, further giving putting. I don't know. I think this is a smokescreen.
No, I don't
It is
think
campaign
it's
time.
intentional. I think maybe the guy probably said it without knowing what he was saying, and then it got repeated. And then, but people.
Well, who
like me
repeated
will
it,
catch
Pete?
that.
Who repeated it?
The governor.
Exactly, and she ought not have repeated it. She doesn't even know what's going to happen. She's just speculating herself.
But she's just talking about a conversation she had. But can I respond to Frenchie about the whole McNinch thing?
Okay, you're unwrapping that. Go ahead.
Okay, so if Frenchie would have read the other part of the article where I got a chance to respond, because I was called up because McNinch had made a complaint about my complaint, and basically my response was, look, you can't muzzle me. He's basically saying if someone wants to make a complaint to the Ethics Commission, they have to keep it confidential. That's up to their complainer. If I wanted it confidential, then the Ethics Commission should keep it confidential. But if I want to put it on blast, that's my First Amendment right to do so.
Sure, and I don't think anyone's debating that. But did you put in an official complaint to the Ethics Commission according to their procedures?
I did, and then
Okay.
they sent me back a form that says fill out this form, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so there is a procedure that happened, and you got put in officially. So it's officially in the Ethics Committee. Okay, because that wasn't clear in the article either.
No, did you turn that form in already?
Yeah.
So the head of the Ethics Committee, when he was interviewed, when he was talking about it, apparently he had not received it.
Not at that time. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah, but again, it's form over function. If I tell you, hey, my house is on fire, and then 911 says, oh, you got to call me at this number and speak in Chamorro instead, right? My house is on fire. I don't care.
Well,
what
yeah.
form I put it in.
Yeah, but could you can appreciate though? I think same thing with like mini Hatch Act rules, where if you're working in the agency or working for Gov Guam, you can't campaign at the same time. And this is kind of similar, or kind of the what's the word called, in the spirit of those kind of laws, and the spirit of campaigning.
It's weird because if you look at other ethics commissions in other places, they don't demand that you put it in a Form 1B subsection C.
But what is
right?
ours?
Ours is just a form that they created and said, here, fill out this form and then turn it in.
Right.
All right? But the substance is still there. The thing is, other jurisdictions, they don't care. You could write it on toilet paper and send it in.
Right.
If it's a complaint, they're looking at the substance of the complaint.
Right. Again, but there's a way. But I understand. I do understand First Amendment, and you have the right to say that. But I also understand during a campaign, certain things. First Amendment doesn't matter to some things when like the Mini Hatch Act, people can't talk about a campaign, and I would say that's an infringement of the First Amendment, wouldn't you?
Right, but that's only at work, involving certain people during certain times. Those are you can restrict those things, right? But when I'm at home and I shoot off an email to the Ethics Commission and I CC a couple of other people, that's up to me. I don't, if I say, hey, Ethics Commission, please keep this secret, I don't want anyone to know, then they're bound by that. But if I myself, just like with anyone who has privilege with a lawyer, if someone goes out and says, hey, this is what I told my lawyer, then that's their right to do so.
Right, and I think I hear you on that part. On that context, I completely agree with you. However, I think McNitch's context was in the context of campaigning and putting out complaints in the middle of a campaign. But I'll let him explain that more, because Again, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with your context, but I don't think you're addressing what he was talking about.
Well, I'll address that now. Is that, you know, I am in a campaign and he's using a class that is paid for by the Ethics Commission, that is required by law, to convince people that what I was doing was wrong. And it turns out that I was totally correct, you know. So he lives up to his name of Dr. Wrong McMinn.
Come on, man. Just get to the substance, man. Just you would probably win a lot more heads if you just stuck to the substance.
He used the class to discuss why my write-in campaign was against the law.
Right.
But that dust is settled. There's nothing wrong with what I'm doing.
You're absolutely right, and the GEC said so. All right,
campaign time.
All right, thanks a lot, Pete. We got to go to a break. Have a great day. Have a great evening. You're listening to Tall Tales. When we come back from Churchill Downs, the home stretch, part 2 of Frenchie's speech. How's my French? Part 2. Don't go away.
Tell me about it, stud.
Circle K's Craft Beer and Whiskey Festival is back on Saturday, October 22nd. We rockin' and rollin' at the Dusatani Guam Resort from 2 to 10 p.m. Bring your friends and come dressed in your best grease costume to win up to $500 in cash and prizes. So bust out those leather jackets and 50-style outfits as we party the night away at Circle K's Craft Beer and Whiskey Fest. Don't be a square. Get your tickets now at craftbeerfestguam.com or cruise on by any 76 Circle K location. Now that's cool, baby.
Half a day. This is Clara Manglania from Security Title. A power of attorney can be a useful tool in a real estate transaction, but if abused, it can result in devastating loss. Choosing your representative should be done with the utmost care and should be very specific about the powers being granted. To mitigate loss, the team at Security Title confirms with the owner prior to using a power of attorney to sell the property. Each transaction is unique. Let the professionals at Security Title use our experience to facilitate a secure closing. We are here to help.
The home stretch, Churchill Downs. You're listening to Tall Tales here on 93.3 FM. Follow it on Facebook, and you can also follow along on YouTube.com. We now have Frenchie in the green room for part 2 of his talk. Part 2.
Yeah. My call was dropped, so I'm calling back.
Shoot.
But anyway, I really have a tough time with the writing candidate to know if he's either naive or manipulative, because Kurt Campbell is anything but a clueless person. He is one of the leading people in the swamp, and that he would take. Now, we know Lou likes to boast about things that she doesn't do, like she took ownership of basically what Michael St. Nicholas was doing. But then Kurt Campbell is a swamp creature, and swamp creatures have no worry about doing something illegal. It's been proven over and over again, and they're going to keep on doing it because they're getting away with it. That's the only reason. So he is right now the White House advisor to East Asia and the Pacific. That's his specialty. When he was in the NSC, so this is not a joker, he was the lead advisor to Obama's pivot policy, which was basically pivoting from Europe to Asia Pacific. He's got medals from the DOD for distinguished person. He's an honorary officer of Australia and New Zealand, and he also received the Order of the Brilliant Star from Taiwan for facilitating relationship between Taiwan and the U.S. The guy is a pro. He's in his late 60s now. He knows what he's doing, and then if he's telling Lou he's going to send some money, don't worry, we'll get it. Now, what I saw from the writing candidate or heard is that, he didn't answer. He didn't answer what I was bringing forward. He denied, he deflected, and at the end, he tried again to destroy McNitch. So this is typical the Red Queen playbook. And to me, you know, the advertising campaign spending $21,000 already, apparently from his own pocket, but then he's telling us he's renting an apartment. He comes from a poor background, and he lives from paycheck to paycheck, and then he's spending $21,000. So what is going on here? There is a lot of things that are not being told. And then he's campaigning while he has not resigned from his office of public defender. So he's still working for the government. He is a government employee. And so what he should publish all his campaign funds and everything, and he doesn't do it. To me, if it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. He's a candidate, and he's trying to wiggle his way out by not following the rules, and he got PO'd when Ken called him, albeit on the wrong subject. But Ron McNitch, when Ron saw that, and Ron does that a lot sometimes, he sees something that is wrong, he doesn't really put his mind around it, but then he raised the alarm.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad he raised the alarm, because all the rest is now showing up. The other candidates actually called the writing candidate on the fact that he has not justified where his money was coming, and he has not answered. And to this time, he has not answered. He didn't answer it today. I don't think he will answer it unless he wins this campaign, which I doubt very, very much. But he's spending a lot of money. I'd like to know where that money is coming from. And that deny, deflect, and destroy, the famous 3Ds, is especially of the specialty of the Apuron crowd and of the Red Queen crowd, which is the same, by the way. And as far as the Judge Tagenko-Gatewood finally doing a ruling, you know, there are several key actors who have been working in the background to try to get that thing going for the settlement of the victims, despite the lawyers, actually against the lawyers, and despite the chancery. And I'm sure I will write something in the Jungle Watch pretty soon regarding that. But yeah, so that's what I had to say.
I had to dip down and get something really quick that I dropped on the floor. But yeah, the thing about the archdiocese, I think it's a good thing, but I don't think it's over yet as far as cases go, because there's still.
Yeah, we'll see what they agree to. We'll see. I mean, right now there is still a lot of. I'll make some phone calls from people who have been dealing with it in the background.
Right.
And try to see.
Very good. Well, thanks for calling back and finishing what you started. See what you started? He was on the other side, and he said his stuff too. To me, I'm still looking at this hospital and what's going on with the with everything, and we just don't have any plans or any word of actually anything that we can chop our teeth on. Just a lot of.
Well, they're circling the wagons right now because they know that some of the things they did is not kosher. Right. So they are circling the wagon. They are trying to divert the attention on blaming Ken for attending a meeting, but that's not the issue. The issue they're trying to hide.
Right. Absolutely.
So in the meantime, let's go, Brandon. I'll listen to you tomorrow.
All right. Thanks a lot, Frenchie. Have a good day. And let's say goodbye to our president, or greet him and say, let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Missile across Japan. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Kim Jong-un's government launching a suspected intermediate-range ballistic missile over northeast Japan.
People scrambled to get to shelters and train service in some areas was cut off. That missile believed to have landed in the Pacific Ocean. Reuters reports Japan's defense minister is saying his country won't rule out any options, including counterattack capabilities, as it looks to strengthen its defenses against Pyongyang.
National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan condemning the launch and reinforcing the U.S. ironclad commitment to the defense of Japan. South Korea has also heightened its defenses in response. Florida continues the recovery efforts in the wake of Hurricane Ian. Lee County Sheriff Carmine Marcino says there are people who are still unaccounted for.
Our local, state, and federal partners are coming together with search teams and going through the debris to make certain that, God forbid, a loved one is in there, injured, hurt, that we get to them. God forbid they're deceased, that we do it the proper way every single step of the way.
National Guard troops have been deployed to some of the barrier islands hardest hit by Ian's landfall, bringing in water and other supplies by helicopter. The state now taking bids for the construction of a temporary bridge to once again link Sanibel Island to the mainland. President Biden will visit Florida tomorrow for a first-hand look after spending time Monday in Puerto Rico, inspecting the damage done from Hurricane Fiona and promising federal help.
The federal government is going to provide individual assistance for up to $37,900 for essential home repairs, another $37,900 for lost property as the law calls for.
The president says the Puerto Rican people have shown extraordinary resolve after several devastating storms in recent years. Wall Street rebounding Monday with its best day since July. The Dow gained 765 points. NASDAQ added 239. The S&P 500 92 points higher. America is listening to Fox News.